Okay, welcome to our webinar today for Cloud9 IDE. This is just an intro webinar getting started with Cloud9. And my name is Brady Dowling. I'm a customer happiness engineer with Cloud9, and I'm not going to waste any time. I'll basically just get right into it. Feel free to ask questions throughout the webinar, and then I'll have a Q&A at the end where we can reach those questions and then go from there. So here is the general outline of what I'll be talking about, and I'll just go ahead and revisit these from time to time just to have a steady flow. But why don't we go ahead and first check out the dashboard. So your dashboard is the page where all of your workspaces are listed, and this is where you'll be taken right after you sign up. I can see all of my workspaces, and workspaces are synonymous with projects, and I'll explain exactly what lives inside of a workspace in a little bit. But also from your dashboard, you can see workspaces that are shared with you from other Cloud9 users. And if you have connected Bitbucket or GitHub, you'll see a list of all of the repositories that you have, and you can actually create a workspace straight from these repositories. And then, of course, you have your settings page where you can update your password, email address, that whole bit. And then here's where you can connect and disconnect these services. So I have both of them connected already, and I will choose to leave them connected. So I'll head back to my profile and my dashboard, and I'll just jump back into this workspace that I already have created here. Actually, I suppose I'll walk through creating a workspace. So we can go ahead here and create a workspace, and you'll just choose some random name. And then you have a description, and this is optional. You don't have to even include this into your workspace creation. And then once you've got those things done, you'll choose if you want your workspace public or private. And depending on what account you have, if it's premium or not, you'll be given a certain number of public or private workspaces. I'll just leave this one public. And then you can also create a workspace straight from a Git repository. So you can just copy and paste the URL in here. But for now, I'll just leave that blank. And then here, these templates down here on the bottom, these basically choose, or they set up two things for you off the gate. They'll set up a couple of files for you in your file navigation, and I'll explain what that means more in a sec. And they'll also set up the runner. So I'll just go ahead and create this workspace, and then what I just said will make a little bit more sense. So I chose the WordPress template, and it gives me this WordPress set of files over here on the left already. And so if you did Meteor, it would give you some Meteor files. If you did PHP, it would give you a Hello World PHP file. So most of these templates, they'll give you the same general setup. And if I just deleted these files, it would basically be the same as the custom template. And then also this run project, this will give me a certain default run configuration. And so for this will just probably be running on Apache. If I chose a Node workspace and I click this run button, it would run Node right off the gate. So that's another part of that. But right from here, I can just go ahead and get started with WordPress if I wanted to. And then, yeah, I'm free to go from here. So why don't I give you a rundown on what we have in this workspace. So obviously you can see your file navigation here on the left. And I'll jump over into this one. You can see your file navigation over here on the left, and I could create a new file, new folder, whatever I'd like to do here. I can delete folders, full control over there. And then here I have my text editor. Actually, excuse me, this is my text editor. I can open up a PHP file, open up a HTML file, and I can go from here. And then I also have my terminal, which I'll touch on a little bit later. So within the code editor, jumping over here, one of the cool features of the code editor is that we have Vim mode. And so if you want to change your keyboard mode. You can choose Vim. For people who are really into Vim, this will just give you, I'm not a Vim expert by any stretch of the imagination. So let's see if I can get into this. Okay, so I just exited Vim mode. If I head back in here and go back into Vim mode, then let's see, I can execute commands from here. Obviously, you can see I'm not very proficient with Vim, but for those that are, you can use Vim right there. Of course, you also can use it from the terminal, so that's up to you, however you want to do that. But I'm just going to use default because clearly Vim is not my forte. And then from here, a couple of cool things about the editor that you might see from other editors as well is that you can use keyboard shortcuts. So right now I'll do Control, Alt, and Right, and that'll do multiple selections. Let's see if I wanted to have another one like this. Again, I can highlight multiple selections and then I could change those all at the same time. So if I wanted those to be divs, I could do that and yeah, then go from there. So that's one of the keyboard shortcuts. For a full list of the keyboard shortcuts, you can head over to Settings and then Key Bindings, and you can really search from here. I can search for tab commands, or if there's completion commands, whatever I'd like to, I can search for. And then you also have full control over these. So these are the default key bindings, but if you just double click this and then do whatever key binding you'd like, then it'll change it up. So let me see if I can find one that I won't mind having changed. Let's do this one. So right now it's Command F3. If I do, let's say Control Alt O, then it'll change it to that. And I've never used Quick Fix, but now I could use it really quickly. So that's one of the ways that you can customize Cloud9 is through these different key bindings that we have. But customization is really excellent in Cloud9. Another way that you can do it is through the layout. And so you can drag and drop your tabs and you can really choose a very custom layout. You can change the size of each of these panes and panels and do it however you'd like. Let me see if I can find something I don't have open. I can pull this in here. And again, I mean, I can have tons and tons of panes if I am really into that. I don't think I will because it makes it a little confusing. You can also change the layout up here. Let's see if I go to View and Layout, I can bring this back to a single pane, just like that. So that was pretty quick. Let me get this stuff back. And then the other thing that you can customize is your themes. And so there are a couple of different themes that you can customize. The first is your editor, and this will show a preview as I change these things. And so this will just change the editor. And then the other theme changes are in here. This changes the full IDE theme. So right now I'm at this flat light theme. If I want to go to a classic theme, it'll change the entire IDE. So that'll also change the editor with it. I think I'll go back to the flat one because that's what I like. And then also in terms of customization, if you want to change the colors that are in your terminal, you're free to do that as well. So you can change background color, text color, anything you want. So Cloud9 is very customizable, and you're free to do whatever you'd like with it. Now let's talk briefly about running an app. So I have this PHP file, and I will get rid of these junk lines that I just made and fix this. Perfect. So I have this little hello world PHP file. And if I go to run this, since this is a PHP file, it'll just run this with Apache. And so once that's run, it'll give me this URL down here where my code is being served. and then I can see exactly what shows up. So it's hello world, just like we expect. And so it's going to show the preview and whatever is running on this workspace URL here. Now, also, if you go to preview, what I just did was preview running application. And if you go to preview, you can also preview the, let me get back in here, open this up. And if you preview, you can also see the raw content of a file. And so this would be similar to double clicking a file on your local machine. And if you double clicked a PHP file on your local machine, it would just open it up in Firefox, but it would show you this kind of thing where you'd be downloading it. And so you wouldn't want to do that with a PHP file or any sort of file that needs to be served up, like a node file or anything. But if you are doing, if you're doing a markdown file, or if you're doing an HTML file, then you don't really need to serve it up with a web server. You can just live preview this file. And I could preview that now, and let's see if we can make changes in here. So we can actually make live changes on static files, and it will show live preview. That's pretty nifty. That just worked out of the gate without you needing to do anything. And then let's say I wanted to run this node file. Same thing, where if I preview raw content, it will just show the text file here. That's not going to do what I want it to. But if I actually run it, then it will do what I want it to. Now, one thing to note when you do run files, if you're going to run from the terminal, is that Cloud9 uses process.env.port, and that's port 8080 by default. You could also use port 8081 or port 8082, and those three ports are publicly available. And then when you choose your IP address, you'll want to serve it on process.env.ip. And if I run this, that will end up serving it on 0.0.0. There it is. So server running at 0.0.0, 8080. Cool. So hopefully that explains a little bit about running your files. And then also, if you want to, with Node, you can set breakpoints and you can do debugging. So let's see if we can get that to stop before it logs this console log. So I'll run that. And since I have this breakpoint set, it'll stop right over here. And from here, I can look at my local variables. I could inspect what this is in line, and that'll be 0.0.0.0. And then this would be 8080. Oh, excuse me. This port would be 8080. So yeah, Node debugging is completely built in. You don't have to set anything up. Debugging for other languages, PHP is in beta, so tread lightly as you use PHP debugging. And then other languages are not supported yet for built-in debugging. Now, let me show you briefly before I get to the Q&A. I'm just going to show you how to share a workspace. So there's a share button up here on the top right. And if I want to, I can type in someone's Cloud9 username and then choose whether or not I want to notify them by email. And then I can choose if I want them to have read or read-write privileges. And so I'll just go ahead and make that invitation. And so now I have this new user in here. If I want to revoke that access, I can do it here. I'm not going to do that right now. But when that person comes into my workspace, we would be able to chat on the right. And I would also be able to see the files that that person has open. And so I would still have full control over this UI here. But if I want to go into whatever file my friend is in, I could double click on the file here. It would just show a list of files that that person has open, and I could kind of follow him in that way. And so that's helpful. And then from there on, you'll really see a kind of Google Docs sort of collaboration where you'll see them typing at the same time, and you get this live real-time collaboration that's really awesome for pair programming or code reviews, or even if you just want to do full-on programming together, teaching someone, whatever you'd like to do. Collaboration is really excellent for that. And then again, if I want to boot them out, it's really simple. I just click them out like that. Okay, so I think that covers the general outline of what I wanted to show you. You do also have sudo access here, so if you'd like to install anything, you can. I've already installed ImageMagick, but spelled that right, which I did, then it would show, yeah, I've already installed it. But you're free to install other things if you'd like. So let's go ahead and jump to Q&A. Feel free to head over there and ask more questions if you'd like to. So one question we already have is, can you later switch from private to public? And yes, you can. Thank you for asking that. That's also done through this share. And right now, everything's private, and since I haven't checked any of this public. But if I could choose editor, application, or preview, if I make the editor public, it'll make everything else public. And if I wanted to, I could only make the application preview public, and that's fine. Maybe I want to show my work to a client, and I could do that just with the application, and then I could copy this and paste it in there, and then they would see. On the other hand, I can also do this from my dashboard. So let's jump over here, and you'll see, here we are. I can go to settings, and then I can choose here, public or private. So that's something that you can decide later on. It's not a big deal. You don't need to be tied into your public or private status. Vim, thank you for asking that. Vim is a very common, so this question is, what is Vim? And Vim is a common text editor that programmers use. It has a somewhat steep learning curve, but many programmers and developers find it to be very powerful and useful. There are lots of different keyboard shortcuts that you can use that make programming really quick. And so if you want to do that, then you can do that with Cloud9. Okay, let's see. I have one other question about showing HTML and CSS3 from scratch. And so let me show you making a brand new file here. So I'm just going to go ahead and make an HTML file. And I can open this up, and I'll just clear this out. And one thing that I forgot to mention is that Cloud9 does have Emmet support right away. And Emmet is it's a way to have little short snippets of text that you can have autocomplete. So for HTML, it would be, save this. If I, excuse me, I have to do this immediately when I make the file. So let me make another one. So if I make a file and then I do exclamation point, it'll fill in all this text for me. And then similarly, along with Emmet, you get, if you wanted to do something with a class, my class, then you can do that. And then, so this is your HTML file. From here, you're free to add in style sheet or whatever else you'd like to, and that'll be treated just like it would on a normal local machine. So here you're free to just go ahead and start coding and adding styles, adding scripts, whatever you'd like to, and that'll be done just like it would on local. Okay, so another question here is Cloud9 based on Cloud Foundry, and is their relationship with Pivotal? Cloud9 is not based on Cloud Foundry, and there is no relationship with Pivotal. So Cloud9 workspaces run in Docker containers. And so each workspace, hopefully I've made this clear so far, but I guess not. Each workspace is its own virtual machine or really a container, a Docker container. And so you do have your own little Linux environment here where you can run normal Linux commands, and you can see the file structure, everything that's in here. It's just basically an Ubuntu virtual machine that you have access to. So Cloud9 runs on Docker containers. Okay, I think that's it for the questions we have right now. I'll stick on here for a couple more minutes and feel free to ask more questions. But if that's it, then go ahead and head to c9.io and get started with creating a workspace and hopefully saving a lot of time as you see that you have a development environment set up right away once you create your workspace. So thank you so much for joining, and yeah, feel free to reach out with questions in the future, and happy coding. Okay, so there are a couple more questions. One about specifics of the Linux VM, and then another about node versions. And I think those questions are better handled on an individual basis. So if you do have more specific questions, feel free to reach out to us at support@c9.io. And then I'd be happy to answer those questions for you specifically. If you have general questions, feel free to continue to submit those now. But like I said, for specific questions, support@c9.io. Okay, so there's one question about plugins, and I'm glad you asked that. I should have mentioned that earlier, but that's something I can show you right now. We have an SDK that's in alpha right now, and so it won't be perfect, but we do have developers that are making plugins right now using this SDK. And so here's some of the documentation that we have, pretty extensive documentation. And this is just at cloud9-sdk.readme.io. And so like I said, since it is in alpha, you aren't going to see a lot of plugins currently out there. In fact, I don't think we've made those public at all. But once this is into beta and into full release, then you're going to see plugins popping up that you'll want to be looking out for and you'll want to be installing. But right now, since it is just an alpha, kind of in a private phase, you're free to follow this guide and get started developing plugins. In fact, if you, let me see here. Oh, there's an easy way to make a plugin, but developing plugins is very fast, and just go ahead and follow this guide and that should get you started right away. Okay, great. There's another question about an offline mode, and Cloud9 is completely in the browser and completely online. So there's no offline mode. If you do check out the SDK, there is an option to do a local install. And the local install, we don't technically support that. And so we won't be able to give you a ton of help with that. But there are instructions to get that installed, and to start using that, you will be missing some of the big features that you might like with the browser-based IDE, like collaboration and like us managing all of the operation stuff, and having a development environment that's already set up. So you'll lose some of the features that are in the browser-based IDE, but if you just really like Ace, which is the editor that's packaged into Cloud9, if you really like Ace and the text editing features, then maybe the local install is right for you. So you're free to try that. And that can be found at, I think that's in our GitHub repository, which is github.com/c9/core. So yeah, mostly online, and there's no real offline mode for that. So thank you for asking that. Okay, and then I think that brings us to the end of our questions for right now. So again, I'll just hang on. Feel free to stick around and ask questions. Okay, can you cover more about GitHub is another question. Sure. So let me just talk about the GitHub integration and how that works. So for those of you not familiar with GitHub, GitHub is a place where you can store your code and you can push and pull to Git repositories. And if I go ahead and look at the repositories that I have right now, these are all of the repositories that I have from GitHub. And if I wanted to jump into one of them, let's say this Angular tutorial here, I could just clone to edit. And this will immediately create a workspace using those files that I have from that repository. And so right now, once I have this, I can make a change here. I'll just break stuff and save that. And then once that's done, I can check the status of my Git repository, and I could add this and stage it for commit, and so on and so forth. So that's generally the flow of the connection that you have with GitHub. It basically just makes it a lot easier to connect with your repositories to see what's there. And then also it will automatically add an SSH key from your Cloud9 account, and that way you can push and pull without having to enter in your password. So hopefully that explains it a little bit better. But that's the general outline of the GitHub integration. And then for more information on using GitHub, you can go ahead and jump to github.com, and that should help out there. Okay, that brings us again to the end of questions. So again, I'll stick around. Feel free to submit more. But yeah, if you're going to head off, then thanks for joining. Okay, so it looks like there are no more questions. So I'm going to head off. Again, if you need to contact me individually or have specific questions, then feel free to reach out at support@c9.io. Thank you so much for attending. Happy to show you around Cloud9, and hopefully you enjoy Cloud9. Hopefully it helps you out a lot. And yeah, happy coding. Thank you again.